The wealthy businessman looked at Sammy Davis Jr.'s casual clothes at the Beverly Hills Country Club and made a comment he'd regret for the rest of his life. "I didn't know they let people dressed like that in here." 3 months later, Sammy owned his house, his business, and everything else he'd ever worked for. It was March 15, 1968, and the Hillcrest Country Club in Beverly Hills was hosting its annual charity golf tournament. The exclusive club, known for its A-list membership and astronomical fees, was the kind of place where deals worth millions were made over cocktails and handshakes. Sammy Davis Jr. had been invited as one of the celebrity participants, though he rarely played golf and was there primarily to support the cause. Sammy had chosen to dress comfortably for the day, a simple polo shirt, khakis, and casual loafers. After years of performing in tuxedos and stage clothes, he appreciated any opportunity to dress down. Besides, it was a golf tournament, not a formal dinner, or so he thought. The man who would soon regret his words was Harold Morrison Richardson III, a third-generation real estate mogul whose family had built an empire developing luxury properties throughout Southern California. At 52, Harold had inherited more wealth than most people could spend in 10 lifetimes, but he'd never worked a day for any of it. His greatest accomplishment was maintaining what his grandfather and father had built, and his greatest talent was looking down on people he considered beneath him. Harold was standing near the club's main bar with a group of fellow members when Sammy walked in. The conversation had been about the usual topics: business acquisitions, stock portfolios, and complaints about their tax bills. When Harold spotted Sammy across the room, he saw an opportunity to entertain his companions with what he considered wit. "Gentlemen," Harold said loud enough for Sammy to hear, "I didn't know they let people dressed like that in here. Someone should tell the help they're not supposed to mingle with the members." The group around Harold chuckled nervously. They knew who Sammy was, and they also knew that Harold had a tendency to say things that crossed lines. But none of them had the courage to challenge a man whose family name was on buildings throughout Beverly Hills. Sammy heard every word. He'd been dealing with comments like this his entire life, but they never stopped stinging. The assumption that a black man in casual clothes must be staff, the casual dismissal of his right to be there, the performance of superiority for an audience. It was all painfully familiar. But Harold Morrison Richardson III had made a critical error. He'd assumed that Sammy Davis Jr. was just an entertainer, someone who sang and danced for money and went home to a modest life. What Harold didn't know was that Sammy was one of the wealthiest men in entertainment, with a business portfolio that extended far beyond performing. Sammy had learned early in his career that fame was temporary but wealth was power. While other entertainers spent their earnings on cars and jewelry, Sammy had quietly built an investment empire. He owned real estate throughout California and Nevada, held stakes in several Las Vegas casinos, and had partnership interests in everything from restaurants to recording studios. More importantly, Sammy had spent years cultivating relationships with the people who really ran things: bank presidents, loan officers, investment brokers, and the kind of financial professionals who could make or break fortunes with a few phone calls. Instead of responding to Harold's insult, Sammy simply smiled, ordered a scotch, and began making mental notes. By the end of the evening, he knew Harold's full name, his business interests, and even which bank held the mortgage on his Beverly Hills mansion. 2 days later, Sammy was sitting in the office of Marcus Goldman, president of Pacific Coast Financial, one of California's largest private banks. Marcus had been handling Sammy's investments for over a decade, and their relationship had evolved from purely professional to genuinely friendly. "Marcus," Sammy said, settling into the leather chair across from Goldman's desk, "I need a favor. I want to know everything about Harold Morrison Richardson III's financial situation. Every loan, every mortgage, every line of credit." Goldman raised an eyebrow. "That's oddly specific, Sammy. Should I ask why?" "Let's just say the man made some comments about my attire that I found less than charitable." Within a week, Goldman had compiled a comprehensive report on Harold's finances, and what he found was surprising. Despite his family's legendary wealth, Harold personally was leveraged to the hilt. The real estate empire looked impressive from the outside, but it was built almost entirely on borrowed money. Harold's mansion carried a $2.3 million mortgage, His office building was financed through a complex arrangement of loans, totaling $8.5 million. His luxury car dealership owed $1.2 million to various creditors. His yacht was financed. Even his country club membership was paid for through a personal line of credit. The man who had mocked Sammy for looking like the help was in reality drowning in debt and living entirely on credit, backed by properties that could lose value at any time. Interesting, Sammy mused as he reviewed the report. And who holds all this paper? It's spread around, Goldman replied. Multiple banks, private investors, some institutional lenders. The total exposure is probably close to $30 million. Sammy leaned back in his chair. Marcus, how would you feel about acquiring some real estate debt? I'm thinking of diversifying my portfolio. What happened next took place quietly, over the course of 8 weeks. Through a network of shell companies, investment vehicles, and carefully orchestrated purchases, Sammy began acquiring Harold's debt. A mortgage here, a business loan there, a line of credit from a third institution. The process required patience and significant capital. But Sammy had both. Each purchase was made through different entities to avoid detection, and each transaction was structured to look like routine business for the selling institutions. Banks were happy to sell off loans to reduce their risk exposure, especially when a reliable buyer like one of Sammy's investment companies was offering fair terms. By mid-May, Sammy controlled approximately 85% of Harold's total debt obligations. The mortgage on the Beverly Hills mansion, the financing on the office building, the loans for the car dealership, the yacht payments, even the line of credit that paid for Harold's country club dues. Nearly everything Harold owed to everyone was now owed to Sammy Davis Jr. The beauty of the plan was that Harold had no idea what was happening. His monthly payments continued to be processed normally. The institutions he dealt with directly remained the same. From his perspective, nothing had changed. But everything had changed. On May 22nd, Harold received a registered letter at his office. The return address was from Goldman, Peterson & Associates, a legal firm he didn't recognize. Inside was a notice that his various loan obligations had been consolidated under new ownership, and that he was requested to attend a meeting to discuss restructuring options. Harold was annoyed, but not particularly concerned. Loan consolidations happened all the time in real estate. He assumed some investment group had bought a package of mortgages and wanted to renegotiate terms. He dealt with situations like this before. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. at a downtown office building. Harold arrived 15 minutes late, as was his habit, expecting to find a conference room full of bankers and lawyers. Instead, he found a simple office with 2 chairs and a familiar figure sitting behind the desk. Sammy Davis Jr. looked up from a stack of papers and smiled. "Hello, Harold. Thank you for coming." Harold's confusion was immediate and total. "What are you doing here?" "I'm supposed to meet with Goldman Peterson about my loans." "You are meeting with them," Sammy replied calmly. "I'm their client. Have a seat." As Harold slowly sat down, the reality of his situation began to dawn on him. The stack of papers in front of Sammy contained copies of every loan document, every mortgage agreement, every line of credit that Harold had signed over the past decade. "I believe you made some comments about my attire a few months ago," Sammy said conversationally. "Something about not knowing they let people dressed like me into the country club." Harold's face went pale. "Now look, if I said something that offended you, I apologize. You know how these social events can be." "Oh, I'm not offended, Harold. I'm educated. You see, your little performance taught me something interesting about assumptions. You assumed that because I was dressed casually, I was somehow beneath you. You assumed that because I'm black, I must be staff. You assumed that because I'm an entertainer, I couldn't possibly belong in your exclusive world." Sammy picked up the top document from his stack. "This is the mortgage on your Beverly Hills home. $2.3 million, currently 73 days behind on payments." Harold's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "This," Sammy continued, lifting another document, "is the financing agreement for your office building. $8.5 million. Also behind on payments." Document by document, Sammy laid out the full scope of Harold's financial obligations. The car dealership loans, the yacht financing, The country club membership fees. Every dollar Harold owed to anyone was now owed to the man he had insulted. The interesting thing about debt, Harold, is that it gives the holder certain rights. For instance, when someone is behind on their payments, as you are on virtually everything, the debt holder can demand immediate payment in full. You can't do this, Harold whispered. Actually, I can, and I am. Sammy leaned forward. As of today, every loan you have is being called in. Full payment is due within 30 days, or I will foreclose on every asset you own. This is insane. You can't destroy someone's life over a casual comment. Sammy's expression hardened. Harold, you tried to humiliate me in front of a room full of people because you thought I looked like the help. You made assumptions about my worth based on my clothes and my skin color. Now you're learning what my actual worth is. I'll fight this in court. With what money? I own your house, your business, your cars, your boat. I even own your country club membership. You can fight it if you want, but you'll be doing it from a very different financial position than you're used to. For the next 20 minutes, Sammy methodically explained Harold's new reality. Every asset was leveraged. Every income stream was tied to properties that were now subject to foreclosure. Harold had been living so far beyond his actual means that he had no financial cushion whatsoever. I'll give you two choices, Harold. Choice 1. You can pay everything off in 30 days and go back to your life as if nothing happened. Choice 2. I take everything, and you start over with nothing but the education you've just received about judging people by their appearance. And if I choose option 1, how exactly am I supposed to come up with $30 million in a month? That's not really my problem, is it? Maybe you could ask your friends at the country club for help. I'm sure they'd be happy to assist someone they clearly respect so much. As Harold sat in stunned silence, Sammy gathered up the papers and stood to leave. There is a third option, Harold. You could come to the country club next Saturday, find me, and apologize publicly for your comments. Not to me personally, but to everyone who heard them. Acknowledge that you made assumptions about someone based on their appearance, and that you learned something about the dangers of judging people by their clothes. And if I do that, then we'll discuss restructuring your debt on terms that won't destroy your life. I'm not interested in ruining you, Harold. I'm interested in teaching you. Harold looked up at Sammy with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. You planned this whole thing, didn't you? From the moment I opened my mouth, Harold, I've been planning for moments like this my whole life. Every time someone looked at me and saw only what they expected to see, I've been building the resources to show them who I really am. The following Saturday, Harold Morrison Richardson III stood up at the Hillcrest Country Club's weekly member luncheon and delivered the most humbling speech of his privileged life. He apologized for his comments about Sammy's attire, admitted that he had made assumptions based on appearance and race, and acknowledged that he had learned a valuable lesson about respect. The apology was sincere because Harold had genuinely learned something. He had discovered that real power wasn't about inherited wealth or social position. It was about what you built, who you knew, and how you treated people along the way. After the apology, Sammy restructured Harold's debt on reasonable terms, allowing him to keep his home and business while establishing a payment plan that would take him years to complete. But Harold never missed a payment, and he never again made assumptions about people based on their appearance. Years later, Harold would tell the story to his own children as a lesson about respect and the dangers of judging others. He would always end it the same way. The man I insulted for his casual clothes owned everything I had worked for, and I didn't even know it. That day I learned that you never know who you're talking to, and you should treat everyone as if they might be the most powerful person in the room. If this incredible story of assumptions, consequences, and the power of quiet strength inspired you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to remember that you never know who you're dealing with, and respect should never depend on someone's appearance. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked or dressed? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about legends who proved that real power comes from what you build, not what you inherit.